How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Music Production Podcast. This is your host, Brian Funk, and this is the show where we talk about all things about making music. And today I'm very excited to talk with Mark Cawley, who is a veteran songwriter who's written songs for Joe Cocker, Winona Judd, Tina Turner, Diana Ross, many others. He's got a new book out called Song Journey and a website where he does coaching, idocoach.com. Very excited to learn quite a lot today. So, Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you, bud. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Nice to be here.
yeah, it's good to have you. Your list of people you've worked with and written for is really incredible and
Thank,
impressive. Congratulations on that.
thank you. Yeah, I was like when I started as a kid, I kind of wanted to be diverse, and write
Hmm.
for people I love. So that's been, one of the main objectives for me as a songwriter is to go in a lot of different areas. So I've been happy with that. It's great.
Yeah, to write in different genres for
Yeah,
different
exactly.
styles and performers. It's something I've noticed you've talked about a little bit. Sort of this difference between the artist and the songwriter, where there's kind of like I guess a different role you get to play depending on which one you pick. Do you mind explaining that a little bit? I think
Yeah,
that's
there is.
a great thing to think about.
Thank you for mentioning the book. There's a thing in the book, a thing. It's a chapter in the book called the artist songwriter, and it can be different. Artist songwriters. Um, I associate things like Americana, like some of these genres, with artists who are songwriters. They go hand in hand. But a lot of the artists that you mentioned, I've written for, in my mind, are probably more performers
Hmm.
than they are songwriters. So that opens the door for people like me to sort of interpret, how I feel they might say something, or it's kind of my bread and butter. But yeah, it's certainly different to write, your own feelings and be the artist. And it's kind of odd for me because the artists you mentioned have been what I shot for, and certainly my career. But I also really admire the Jason Isbells and a lot of artists right now who are, songwriters and artists, because I feel that an artist probably should say what's in their head and their heart
Hmm.
rather than have me do it, for
Right.
instance. Which is it's kind of it's kind of funny to say that, but um, it makes more sense when you think that if you're a songwriter and you write for performers who really just aren't writers, then we're good. You know,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. But
I think so. So you sort of come up with an idea and then have to figure out how it would pass through their mind in a way.
exactly, yeah. Like for years, that's kind of what I did with artists. Like if the business had changed a little bit, but years ago, I would, you get a call from your publisher going, okay, so and so is looking for a song for their album, and you would think, okay, they're not known as a songwriter, like Joe Cocker, for
Hmm.
instance. And I would do homework. I really would sit and listen to every Joe Cocker thing and make notes and go, what keys did they sing in? What kind of things did they talk about? As a lyricist, especially, I would think, what's their language? Would they say something? If I write it, would it come out of their mouth? And that's something that writers don't think about in the beginning, but as you get, more into it, more mature, you really think about it. You think, would this artist say that authentically?
Hmm.
And I found that the artists that are great artists want to be authentic. They don't want to repeat themselves, and there becomes kind of one of the problems in a way. Over the years, you think, okay, if I was writing for like people like Tina Turner, which I would do, I would in the beginning I would think, okay, let's listen to every Tina Turner song. Let's look at, as a melody guy, let's look at the keys they would sing in. What's their range like? As a lyricist, what would they talk about? But you tend to forget or learn the hard way, which is what I learned the hard way. I would come and mimic what I thought they would want to do next based on what they've done, not knowing that a really true artist is going to go, I've already done that. I don't want to do it
Hmm.
again. I want something brand new. So luckily, over the years, and I wrote a lot about it in the book, that people like Cocker and Tina and stuff, finally, myself and some of my favorite co-writers, we got together and went, to heck with it. We give up. Let's quit shooting for what we think they want, write something that we love, and hope someone loves it too. And that's exactly what happened,
Hmm.
especially with Tina Turner at the height of her career. I got together with Brenda Russell and Kai Fleming, two of my favorite writers, both of them tremendous writers. And we had been beaten up a little bit doing this method I talked about, thinking, how do we get to her? People like that. And we got together in Nashville and said, you know what? Let's spend 2 days trying to knock each other out and not worry about the rest of this deal. And if we go out of here after 2 days loving what we did, success.
Mm.
Now, what happened was we spent 2 days writing this song called Dancing in My Dreams. And we finished and loved it. Went in, Brenda and I went in the studio as quick as we could and cut a really rough demo. And we all played it in our cars on the way home to everywhere, or planes or
Yeah.
whatever. And at one point you go, we don't care if anybody cuts it. This is, the reason we write songs. And it really was. But then being songwriters, about 2 weeks later, you go, I wonder if anybody could cut this because you can't help it. And long story and journey short, it got to Tina Turner, the very artist we wanted. And she said, this is not anything I've done before. This is what I want to say now. And she actually went on Oprah, which also was the same. And she went, I got this song from these writers, and this is where I want to go. Doesn't sound like anything I've ever done. And I'm going to base my album around this.
Wow.
And she did, and the album sold like 6 million. So the three of us went, maybe this is the key to writing for these kind of artists. Write what they might feel in the future, not what you've heard them do before.
Hmm.
So the end of the story was we followed it individually and collectively, followed this thought through to people like Joe Cocker and Shaka Khan and these artists that I always loved. We just wrote songs and got them to them and went, wonder if they'd love them. And in some cases they did. So it's the next step an artist sometimes doesn't even envision, but they're looking for.
Right. So you're almost like at the crystal ball trying to imagine
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
next step in their career.
Well, either that, yeah, it's either that or you kind of don't even imagine. You just go, let's write something that, like if you sat down to write today and said, I'm just going to write a song I absolutely love.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, job done. I hope somebody loves it, and then sometimes they do. And I think the lesson is you think if you love it enough, somebody else probably will.
Mm.
I've written plenty where I walked away going, I don't know, this might be commercial. I don't love it, but somebody will. Those don't seem to connect as well or as often.
Yeah. I guess there's something that we can sort of relate to or connect with when something's authentic like that.
Yeah,
It's
I
very,
think so.
I think it's very hard to put your finger on it, but you kind of know it when it comes to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
And I it's a funny thing cuz you're in one sense like trying to make this thing for a certain artist, but in the other sense you have to not try to make it for the artist and just
Yeah.
make it
Yeah.
natural.
Well, like the story I was telling you, I think really reflecting back, we decided not to write for an artist. We said, let's forget it,
Yeah.
for a couple of days anyway. Because when you've got a contract and you're in a publishing deal like that, and you're plugging away and you're always trying to get cuts. And in my case, you have a young family and all that kind of stuff. It's a business.
Yeah.
You're thinking, how do I get a song to someone who's going to, do it, and I'm going to have a career doing this?
Right.
It's a different thing. But every once in a while, you sit down and go, I'm in this because I love to write.
Mhm.
And I didn't think about making money as a kid. I just wrote to write. So let's get back to that. Let's have fun like a kid. And, at the end of the day, go, this is fun. This is great. Those songs can connect big time.
Something changes, I think, when you're trying to do it to earn a living, to make money,
Mm.
to be accepted or be liked. Um, and that could be, I guess, on any level, really. But as soon as you start evaluating your work from this perspective of will it be accepted, will it
Yeah,
be liked, it definitely changes it. It changes the
it
process a
does.
lot.
Yes. I think part of that is, in coaching people, which I do a lot of, I've done a bunch today, for instance. I really try to get them to think of the idea of like playing like a kid,
Mm.
because a 5-year-old, if you give them a bunch of crayons or paint, they're not going to go, what do you think I should do to make money? What do you think? They're not even going to say, what do you think of it in the early stages? They're going to go, here's a
Right.
bunch of paint. Here's a bunch of stuff. They're going to stand back and go, that was fun.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll go, do you like it? But probably they don't care. I think you have to have that mentality as a songwriter. You have to you have to have a skill set for sure. But you also have to go, let's play like a kid.
Hmm.
Let's forget, you know, everything else.
And just kind of get in that moment and enjoy the process of it.
Exactly. Yeah, you're gonna enjoy the process big time.
I find once I start thinking about how it's going to be received and the results and what it's going to happen to it, that's the very thing that pulls me out of the moment and out of the kind of enjoyment of the process. And that's when like anxieties come in and
Sure.
pressure and self doubt,
Yeah.
very much so.
Yep.
It's a hard thing to do, and I imagine like as this has been your career, how do you manage to not keep reminding yourself that you have to put food on the table with these songs?
It takes some discipline. It really does. And it's not, I can't say I mastered it over the years every day.
Mhm.
But yeah, you have to go, okay, clear my mind, play like a kid, really. Like just pick up things and stay interested, stay engaged, stay fun. Um, one of the stories I tell in my coaching that is absolutely true, and I can't name the name, but I have a friend here in Nashville who's incredibly successful. And we wrote together once in a while. And this writer would begin with like coming to my house and coming into my studio. And I could hear them come down the stairs and be going, I've got the best idea. You're going to love this. You're going to love it. And so hyper and so engaged and so great. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. But then it would turn into, this is going to put your kids through college. This is going to pay your house up. This idea right here is going to change your life.
Mm.
That's when I knew I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
Most writers go, uh-oh. And this writer would literally sit down and start to play, and in a couple of minutes turn from all that into literally playing and going, this is great, this is so good, son. And then they start to go, oh, would anybody record this? Is this any good? Would
Mm.
so and so do it? Is this gonna? And then finally go, hands off the keyboard and go,
Yeah.
I think this probably sucks, doesn't it? And you'd go, let's start again. It was like, being a psychiatrist's office or something. You go, okay, take a breath, start again. But it was a process for this writer to have to go through what are we doing? How are we writing? What are we writing for? And then it was like, oh, we shouldn't do that, and start all over.
Yeah, I love that you touch on that because it's so big. This whole like creating art is so psychological,
Mm,
and to the idea of like we're supposed to be expressing ourselves and being unique and original, but at the same time that thought always creeps in, is this any good? And I
yeah,
tell students of mine, when you take your little baby idea that was just born, and you're excited about it for some reason,
yeah,
and then as soon as you start comparing it and being critical about it, I feel like you're now taking this little infant idea, comparing it to all these finely produced finished products from your favorite artist that might have had a team of people working on.
yeah,
And I like to explain it's like a little leaguer. You're comparing a little leaguer to a major league player in
yeah,
baseball, and it's just not fair to the idea, and you're gonna inevitably get down on it.
yeah. You're right.
And I know this in my own head, but I struggle with it every single time. Every
You're not
single time.
alone. I mean, that knowing it is part of the deal. I think
Mhm,
recognizing what that is, then you work on it.
mhm.
Same for me at my age and over the years. It creeps in. It
Yeah,
creeps into, even like we talked about paying bills and all that stuff. You can be a songwriter or an artist of any sort. You can be working and then think, oh, I got a mortgage payment coming up. And that stuff is the enemy of creativity. It really is. I mean,
yeah.
it's necessary in your life, but it's not a good part of your creative life. I think one of the things you can do, I don't know if you do this or if it helps you, but I found out long ago, finding some time of the day to create a routine. Like for me, it was getting up very early. I still get up today. I get up at 4,
Hmm.
I get up really early. But a lot of my publishing deals were in the UK, so there was always a 6 hour or so time difference. That was the business part. But I enjoy getting up really early because I found that your mind doesn't start to go to some of the other stuff it goes to at noon and lunchtime and 1 and 2 and 3, which is I'm hungry, ooh, the kids are coming home. I got life. Life doesn't come in as much in my mind at 5 in the morning or 6 or 7 in the
Hmm.
morning. And those became the peak hours of writing for me. I was It was easier to put that in the back of my mind always.
Wow. So you're
Oh,
you're up that early,
I'm up
coming up
early.
with your ideas.
Yeah. And I still, I'm doing a lot more coaching and the book is out and all this kind of stuff. So I'm not writing as competitively as I did for years and years. But I still, in all that time, loved getting up early, like
Hmm.
5 o'clock maybe. And even with a family in the house, I would get a cup of coffee and go down and resurface at 8 o'clock maybe.
Yeah. I do enjoy those early hours myself. I teach high school English as
Mm.
my like grown up job. And all the
That's
music
great.
production stuff is what I do when I'm not doing that.
Mhm.
Um, so getting up early is built into my life, like it or not.
Yeah. Oh,
But I really do appreciate those hours where the world is still and nothing's going on. There's no one there. Everyone else is sleeping, or
yeah.
there's something nice about that. And
I think a lot of writers, I don't know if you've ever found this, some of them find it at the other end of the spectrum.
yeah, the
Some it's
nighttime.
1 in the morning, 2, 3 in the morning. Same thing. Everybody's asleep. It's all quiet.
That's how I was before I got my steady job. I
Yeah,
was
you can't do that, can you?
no,
And
no. There's no
get up and work.
there's no going down into the basement studio to work and then coming out and seeing the sun is
Yeah.
up.
I'll just get up at noon tomorrow and just be creative all night
Yeah,
tonight. Can't do it.
that was a college thing. I liked it then, but now I'm generally a little too spent by then. I think I maybe it's the training from working in the morning so much, but I do feel like I'm fresher in the beginning of the day, and all the maybe it's like the willpower and the stress of the day hasn't quite gotten to me yet, and
Exactly. Yeah. You kindly mentioned that I coach writers. I mean, that's one of the things I talk to them about early on. If we start, some of them I've coached for years, a couple of years, some, just for a while, but we always start on the idea of a ritual.
hmm,
And the reason for it to me is if you figure out sort of how do I put it, your go-to area, like if you got up at 7 in the morning and you write till 9 in the morning and you stop, you don't feel spent. You look forward to the next time. I guess the essence of what I'm talking about is I really try to get them to pick a short amount of time, consistent amount of time. Maybe it's once a week in the beginning for 2 hours, anything so they don't feel spent and they look forward to the next one and
yeah,
then build from there. Because that feeling of like dreading when you sit down because you're tired or you're gonna get tired or you feel like you don't have enough ideas to spend all day is deadly.
yeah,
Even over the years with being paid to write all the time, I kind of began to recognize my peak hours, my peak working creativity time, and I would stop. I might get up at 5 and I might quit at noon and just go that those were the good hours. I'm gonna Doesn't mean you're not a songwriter the rest of the day. You might go to the library, the bookstore, and or wherever and think of ideas, but I'm not going to sit there and bang away all day long till I get frustrated or discouraged. I'm going to recognize my peak creativity time and utilize
hmm. I think that's a great idea because a lot of times when we give ourselves long periods of time to work, that's when we start procrastinating because we have
it. Yeah.
all this
Oh, yeah. And
time.
writers love to procrastinate, as you know. I
Oh
mean, you
yeah,
look at a blank page and go, well, I got all weekend. I'll go over here and, you
yeah.
know, peruse something else for a while.
A lot of
Yeah.
little things become super important all of a sudden.
Heck yeah.
My
Any
bookshelf is
little
not
thing.
alphabetized. We
Oh
got to
yeah,
get on that.
that's me too. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
But you kind of almost like, I guess it's a trick in performance too, where you sort of leave the audience wanting more, and that's yourself. You kind of, when
That's a
you shut it down.
I'm going to take that. That's a great way to put it. Yeah, I never thought of it. Yeah, you leave yourself wanting more.
Hmm,
You go, okay, I try to get people to do 2 hours in the beginning
yeah.
for that reason. So you think, oh, I maybe have more. Can't wait till the next time. Yeah, leave yourself wanting more is a great way to put it. So you come back and you're enthused the next time.
I sometimes do a little trick on myself, and a lot of my productivity hacks are tricks I play on myself.
Mm.
But it's like, I only have to do it for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Just say just 20 minutes, 10 minutes sometimes even. I do this with exercise too, where I give myself such a short amount of time that it's like impossible to not do. Um,
Because you'd be shamed.
yeah, I can't do this for 10 minutes,
Yeah.
It's actually how I started getting into a little bit of meditation at the start of the year, something I've been interested in with 10 minutes a day. Um, there are days where sometimes I want to keep going.
Mhm.
But with music, especially, since it's something I love and I get excited about, I might not be excited in the beginning. It might be a little bit of dragging myself to it. But usually within 10 minutes, something will happen where I
Mhm.
want to keep going. So I kind of fool myself into this small commitment. And then next thing you know, you're in
That's
that
kind
zone.
of what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
Maybe the only little bit of difference to me is in coaching somebody. Uh, in the first few sessions, or I don't know how many sessions it might take, but we talk about a lot of tools so that when you sit down for that time you have, maybe it's 2 hours, you begin to look forward to utilizing some of the tools right away. You go,
Right.
okay, I learned these things, this. I can't do it till I sit down to write for my couple hours, but when I do, bam, I'm going to try all these things. And then again, it's great when it's short because 2 hours is up and you go, okay, I'm going to stop and I'll look forward to the next one. And I'm kind of with you. And I was kidding about it being shaming, but I mean, it's like
Oh, yeah.
you think if you're doing this and you're learning and you're coming to me for coaching or you're whatever you're doing as a songwriter, if you can't put in 2 hours, you'd probably go, you know, shame on me. Basically, it's
Yeah.
like you can spend 2 hours doing most anything. I think, but yeah,
Yeah. I think it's a reality check. If you can't make that happen, then,
yeah.
you know,
Then you need more things to play with. It's like giving a kid 2 hours in an empty room. They're going to go, I'm bored. You give them a bunch of tools or fun things, and they're going to have fun for 2 hours.
hmm,
So yeah, the coaching for me is a lot of like, let's pass on tools, and so that when you sit down to write, this can be going through your mind. It can help.
yeah. Well, maybe I can ask you if you don't mind sharing a couple tools for us to play with, maybe after we're done
Sure.
talking or
Yeah.
listening to the show.
Yeah.
Anything in particular? Anything you like to start with, or you think
Well,
is particularly
let's be
effective?
random. Again,
Sure.
I was coaching people. I coached a couple people in the UK today and one in the US. And
Is that like Skype or something
I
like
do,
what we're
yeah, all
doing
my
right now?
sessions are Skype,
Nice.
and yeah, they're all Skype. They're all an hour, and I've got them all over the world. I've got them in Africa, from Africa to New York,
Wow.
and yeah, it's wonderful for me because I just work out the times and go, yes, I can do,
Yeah.
up until 5 o'clock or whatever the time changes, we do it. Um, but a day like today, I probably talked about a few different tools. Some of them I coached a lyricist in the UK today, and one of my favorite tools with writing lyrics is to talk it out loud, not
Hmm.
sing it, not just write it, but to start talking it out loud section by section. So if I wrote a verse, I'm going to just say it out loud to
Hmm.
myself to get the cadence of it. To It works a couple of great ways. One is to go. Sometimes I'll say something, and I hope I can say this with you, but um, if I say it and I realize it's not the way I would say it, I tend to say bullshit out loud to myself in the
Uh-huh.
room. I'll go, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Stop and go, why am I writing it that way? That's not how I would say it.
Hmm.
Let's go back, write it like I would say it. And I'm not happy till I've written a lyric and I go, sounds like it came out of my mouth. Sounds like I could call you up and go, hey Brian, I have this idea, and you're going to go tell me what it is, and I could tell you, and it would sound real to you
Right.
rather than written. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's a big one to me.
Hmm.
Um, Another tool probably that came up today was supporting your title, which is also huge. I really like writing prose. Like if I had a title, I'm going to stop for a minute and write a little bit of prose, which means, don't rhyme or anything. Just what's this about? And
Yeah.
as I write my lyric, I'm going to keep looking at the prose and going, am I still writing about what I said I'm writing about,
Hmm.
basically? Like I had a client today um, who was writing something really good. And all of a sudden, later in the song, it went off into describing another sort of thing for a while. And the thing on its own was pretty good. But if you related it to the idea, really lost the thread totally. And we can all do that. And the first way I ran into that was a young writer with publishers smarter than me would go, where'd you go here in the third verse? And I'd go, well, doesn't it look good? That's the part I'm really proud of. And they
Hmm.
would go, makes no sense though. They said, aren't you talking about this? And I'd go, yeah, I thought I was. No? And they go, no, you totally lost me. You got a cat that came in the story about this other thing here. And writer, the further down you get in something, you can tend to get bored with yourself and get off over here and introduce something clever or whatever. But writing prose is a sort of a discipline you can look at and go, okay, no, 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 I can't go here. I got to stay here. Because most songs, if not all songs, are about one thing. So prose lets you know what the one thing is. I'm going to have to give up the cat because I'm writing about this.
Hmm. Now you got another idea for the cat, maybe later.
Yeah, maybe it's hopefully another song, but yeah, you can't have them all. And that ties into. I love coaching lyricists, especially lyrics are big to me. And being in Nashville, it's a lyric town for sure. But some of the tricks, like writing prose, not tricks, but habits of writing prose first, talking your lyric out. Does it sound conversational? Is it interesting? That's another big one. I think a lot of writers spend a lot of time on an idea that's not a great idea.
Hmm.
And sometimes prose can help you see that. I've written prose before where I thought, I have the best idea. I'm so excited. And then I think, okay, let me take a minute and just write what this is going to be about. And I'll look at it and go, hmm, I don't really care. I thought I
Yeah.
did, but looking at
Hmm.
that, not so much.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think that's a cool idea because it forces you to focus for one.
Hmm.
But a lot of times when you hear a songwriter talk about their song and they explain like it's the feeling when this happens and
Yeah.
this intersection, and then you can see the connection better.
Hmm.
Um, if you can't really do that,
Yeah.
then there's something missing from the overall like message of the song.
And sometimes too, it's not, like you said, if you can't really do that, that's a good point. Because to me, that sort of conveys you got to do it through the whole song.
Hmm.
Early on, a publisher I had threw that out to me, and it was something that stuck with me. That write a seamless lyric. And at first, I thought, "What? I've got great stuff in here." And he's like, "It's great here and there, but it's got to be great from top to bottom."
Hmm.
And the other thing that was impressed upon me that I think is great is he said, "You're writing for a listener, not just what's in your head, but someone has got to pick this up from you. And if you lose them with what's in your wild head,
Hmm.
you lose them. And if you lose them, you're not going to have a hit song. You're not going to have a great result. You're just going to lose them because it's in your head and not on the page or in the song. So, keep a thread and consider a listener all the time. And you consider a listener. I get passionate about this because it's interesting. It's a difference between sometimes a really amateur writer and a writer who's nailing it. Is that the writer who's nailing it thinks about how relatable the idea is, how accessible it is. Not that you live or die by it, but you consider it. And then you think seamless. Have I taken this idea from top to bottom and made it accessible to you as a listener? Do you get it?
Hmm.
You know?
So the
And
listener should almost be able to write that prose too.
Well, there's a great point. Yeah.
Hmm.
It- Again, I'm stealing that too. No, I'm not kidding. That's great. Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way. A listener should be able to come out with the same prose. Like if I took, I'm a big Beatle fan.
Me too.
If I took Penny Lane, right, which is classic on so many levels of lyric writing, all the characters are explained. At the end of the day, a listener should go, well, I think this song is about going through my hometown and,
Hmm.
remembering the people in it, the places in it with
Yeah.
affection. That's it.
Right.
Period. The Beatles went, there's a barber shaving another. There's all
Yeah.
these details, color, which is huge. That's how a listener sees what you want them to see. But at the end of the day, you're right. Yeah, they should walk away going, I think it's about memories of my hometown.
Hmm.
That's it.
It's funny you mentioned the Beatles, because one of my favorites, actually, too. Probably everybody, right? But
Should be. If not, they should be.
but as you were speaking too about like the kind of like childlike wonder and excitement, I think that's something like that they did really well as a
They
group,
were
and
they were
they
geniuses. I
popped in
think.
my head for that because they did kind of go their own way and they made some changes and upset some people with Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields, for instance.
Yeah, it's brilliant song. It's such brilliant songwriting. You know, of a certain time, but still brilliant. And you look at it now, and it's what cracks me up too is you and I are talking about some specifics and maybe analyzing songs a little bit, but I've had this experience too, and I've read Beatle interviews, plenty of them, where they were asked about specifics in their song, and they said, "I don't know." You
Yeah.
know, I just wrote what I saw, and that's brilliant to me. That you get to that point, and you go, "I'm just sort of a vessel for these memories and these images," and that's wonderful writing. When people die, how do I put it? When they tear it apart too much, deconstruct it way too much. Sometimes it's like, you know, I doubt the writer knew that even.
Yeah. I studying like English literature to become an English teacher, there was
Mhm.
a moment that really helped me, but it was also like kind of like um I don't know if it's like seeing the wizard behind the curtain or something like that, but it was I just thought like these especially literary criticism where they're writing about literature. I was like, there's just no way that this is what the writer was thinking,
Yeah.
or you're kind of just making this up. If you can
Yeah.
basically if you can pull it out of the text and justify it, you can say anything you want.
Sometimes doesn't that bother you? Read the on I have a I got I can't name names. I wish I could. I have a great friend who is a co-writer I've written with a lot, and I won't say he or she even, but this person showed me a book that is a popular songwriting book, and in it they deconstructed a few of this writer's songs. And this writer's my buddy, and they were looking at him going, "Read that." And I read it, and they went, "I have no idea what they're talking about. I didn't do that.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that means." And then we looked at another one, and this writer said, "This is nuts. I guess maybe it makes sense to somebody, but not. I didn't. I don't know this.
Mm.
I just wrote it." That it makes me. It's probably a tricky area, but I'm a little distrustful sometimes when I read songs about writing, or I'm sorry, books about writing,
Right.
or reviews and things. I think, have you done this before? If
Mhm.
you have, I'm going to listen a little harder. If you haven't, I'm worried that it's more of a, I don't know what, more of a book report or a
Uh-huh.
song report from someone who hasn't actually done it, but they're thinking about how it probably was done. They're thinking too hard, I think.
Yeah, I've gotten that a lot in some of the readings I've done. The way I found it kind of I guess like the nice thing about it was that we're all interpreting things our own way.
Mm,
Every single person brings their own background, their own history, their own preferences into their interpretations. And I do think that is one of the cool things about art and music and writing is that once it sort of leaves the writer, it's open to interpretation, and
Yeah,
it's
very true.
for
Yeah.
everybody. And sometimes that gets writers in trouble, I think, unwarrantedly. But it's it's an important thing, I think, to remember for people when they're reading something, writing something, listening to something, that you're putting a lot of the meaning in there.
Yes.
And because I went when I was in school, high school, and we're reading books, say, or reading poetry, and they're telling us this is the meaning, this is the theme.
Mhm.
I sort of had it in my head like the theme was handed down to the teachers on some stone tablet. Here you are.
Yeah.
These are the answers
Yeah.
to the art. And I never understood until I got a little bit older, really through music, that we're interpreting, we're bringing in the meaning in. We're almost like meeting halfway with the writer.
It's a tricky part of writing, as you know, is to there's an expression in Nashville, especially, which is show, not tell. Can you write a
Mhm.
lyric and show? Don't tell somebody, show them. But there's an art form to that,
Yeah.
based on what you're saying. You can't do it so completely that someone goes, okay, I can't interpret it because you've interpreted it. You told me every single thing
Uh-huh.
about it. There's no room for me to make it my own. Um, One of the best examples, it's something I put in the book, but it's been such a great example to me, was, of course, I can't think of who it is offhand, but some writer I was reading talked about thinking about your writing like a stager. So I have two daughters here. One of them is an interior designer in Nashville, and she's has her own company, and she also was stage a home. So you know what staging is, and
When
sometimes I
you're
talk
gonna
to writers
sell it,
about stuff
right?
and you don't get it. But her job is to go into your house and go, I'm looking at what you have behind you right now, and if I'm going to sell that,
Hmm.
I might go, let's take these things down.
Yeah.
Let's put a couple other things in here to make it feel good. That's staging. But the idea to me and to this article I read was they're saying that's good lyric writing. If I can look at your room and go, it's not that there's nothing in it and I have to imagine it, and it's not that every single thing you is in your head is in the room, but there's enough there for me to go, okay, I get your vision. Now I can remember mine.
Hmm.
That's good songwriting, really good lyric writing too. Just enough color and detail so you go, I see what the writer wanted me to see, but it could also be my story or
Right.
somebody else's story. That's a trick. That is a expert lyric writing. I think it's
Mm.
hard to do. It's an art form. It's great, but thinking like a stager, I think, is a great lyric idea. Really good.
I
Wish
u-
I'd thought of it.
That's good. Hey, he can use it, well, right?
Yeah.
I talk about showing, not telling with my English students, with their writing. And I usually start the day off with just a couple minutes of writing. I give them maybe a prompt or an idea. But I'll do one where it's like, tell me what you did over the weekend, but you can't tell me what you did. So if you had soccer
Yeah.
practice, don't tell me you had soccer practice. Take me to where you're putting your cleats on, you're
Oh,
pulling
that's
up your
good. That's
socks, you're
good.
putting on
Yeah,
the
yeah,
shin guards. Um,
yeah.
describe it. Show me, don't tell me is
That's
what
what
I
we're
say.
talking about. Exactly. Yeah, that's great. Sure. Yeah, yeah.
And a lot
Even
of
down to the
times,
point of you may have done this too, but you can actually I've done this in workshops, given people a couple of words and said, okay, I'm going to give you the word moon and spend a few minutes thinking about it. Come back to me with a phrase, however long or short you want, but don't say moon.
hmm,
So,
I like
I've
that.
done that where someone said the thing the cow jumps over, and you go, that's pretty creative.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, same thing I think you're talking about. Yeah. Think a little more
Yeah, because
than just,
sometimes in
yeah,
those little details, the
yeah,
spirit comes out a little. Even I'm looking in your room right now, and I see the guitar laying on the couch, and just that alone, there's like a soul to that.
yeah,
I could say there's a guitar in the room, but the laying on the couch part is
exactly.
that
That's an
has.
art. That's an art, as you know, as an English teacher and a songwriter. Sure, you look at something and you go, well, I could describe every single thing I see, but then you'll never have your own. But
Mhm,
if I said there's a martin on a tan couch
mm.
and explain a little bit, then your mind starts to see it, and you go to maybe your own.
Yeah, maybe it's not
Um,
just on the couch, it's resting, you know?
exactly. Yeah,
It
exactly.
a
Yeah,
little bit
you're
of
dead on.
humanity.
Yeah, if you
Mm,
find words like that, that's so much better than it's sitting there.
yeah,
It's resting there. It's hibernating. It's
uh-huh.
waiting. You know,
Yeah, waiting is a good one too. Um, it's funny how, like, that can just bring things to life, though. I guess that's, a little personification too, but, just this idea that, sometimes don't necessarily, like, tell me you got your heart broke, but what happened? Show me. What was it? It was this maybe it was the letter that fell out of the bag or something from
exactly.
and
Exactly. Yeah, I'm totally with you.
mm,
Those are for lyricists, songwriters, and especially lyricists. Those are things I kind of preach to them. Exactly what you're talking about. Let's find a situation. Don't tell me. Show me the situation. I fell down on my knees. Blah 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 until I think, okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah, another. I love these examples, and again, I wish this were mine, but it's not. Somewhere I read a lot of different things, and there was a book about, I think, screenwriting. They were talking about directors, and they said sometimes think of yourself as a director in that you're explaining to somebody what you want them to convey.
mhm,
Like if I'm a director and you're the actor, and I said, okay, Brian, I want you to, your heart is broken here, you know, totally broken, you're destroyed, distraught, and stuff. A director can say that, but as an actor, you've got to do it. You got to show
right,
it. You can't just go, okay, great, yeah, my heart's broken, I'm distraught.
uh-huh,
You've got to find a way to do it. And that's the same with a lyricist. You got to find a way to illustrate, to show that stuff, and not just say it, tell it.
mm, think like a director. I like that.
When I talk to lyricists, especially, it's a lot of little things that you can convey that I picked up from other writers over the years. One was, if you read your lyric and you feel like you're reporting,
Mm,
then you're wrong. I mean, and think of a reporter on the news. A reporter on the news is meant to give you the news, not with an opinion,
right,
not with color. They're called color commentators occasionally, but they're not. They're like, here's the news. You don't want to know how they feel about it. You just want the facts.
right,
Lyric writing, you can't do it. If you
mhm,
write like that, it's just the facts. It's boring. You've got
yeah,
to show it, illustrate it somehow.
right, right, yeah. Well,
That's the art.
that's how the news is supposed to be anyway,
It is, yeah. I'm not knocking the news. Yeah,
right?
I don't want to know, how a news person feels about
Yeah,
every topic. I just tell me what's going on.
mhm,
But that's not songwriting.
no, mm. Yeah, that's good stuff. I love it. I think I can use some of that with my students too.
I'm going to use some of yours. I've already got stuff from you, so good trade.
Yeah, nice. How about musically? So the big thing I've run into myself and with the music classes and students I have is kind of like developing a song. We're all pretty good at coming up with and a lot of the people I work with, maybe just to clarify, there's a lot of electronic musicians, a lot of like people that are writing inside the computer, and it's a very common thing to come up with a really amazing 8-bar loop
Yeah.
that feels great, but then what do we do with that? Where do we take that? And I've had that as a guitar player where I love this riff,
Mhm.
but now what?
Yeah.
So what do you think? How do you handle that problem?
Well, you know, understanding how songs are written now, as opposed to sort of when I started out or anything, there's an element to it now that was something I embraced early on for myself too, and it helped me out a lot. I grew up in New York State in more of a pop environment, right? Um, when it became possible to get like a laptop and a keyboard loaded with loops,
Mhm.
I really embraced that. Not everybody I wrote with did, but I did. And those were loops. They were 8 bar, 16 bar, whatever. Um, those to me were pretty inspiring. And I still like the idea of looping an idea and seeing what it becomes. So I'm never one to knock that. I think it's great. What you create from there is a different culture right now. I like to, I don't know if this answers your question, but I still like to create a loop of some sort. Let's break it all the way down to, like, if I'm working on a song and I've got a melody, I'll create an 8-bar loop, or maybe just the chords to the chorus, record them without the melody in a loop, and go somewhere else. Get in the car, get away from my studio, whatever, and let that thing play and play and play and play till my subconscious begins to come up with something.
Hmm.
I love loops for that. I've always loved them for that. And I'll create loops out of a lyric idea, out of a drum loop, out of a guitar part, out of a chorus, only to create freedom to go, okay, rather than lock into this is my melody over 8 bars, 16 bars, I'm going to go, here are the bars. Let me sing them, sing them, sing them, and get out of my environment, especially the car. So many writers I know love being in the car with a loop
Mm.
because there's some part of your subconscious that is free to play. And so you've probably heard these theories too, and I don't even always do them justice, but some part of your brain is working on driving the car and the gas pedal and everything else. The other part's going, I don't know, I'm over here throwing out ideas. I don't know if they fit.
Yeah.
Um, Early on, I learned to like take two recorders with me. I used to take like one recorder with the loop, another one to record whatever I was singing over the loop on a walk
Mm.
or in the car or something. Um, so going back to loop ideas, I love creating all kinds of loops and letting my subconscious play and play and play and play and play until something
Mm.
sort of lively, I hope.
Mm. I think that when we're driving, when we're walking, there's, like you said, there's this like subconscious movement that I think for me helps me quite a lot. Like if I talk on the phone, I'm often pacing. It just
Yeah.
there's a movement.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'm able to do the podcast so well
Yeah, you're
because
sitting really
I,
well. You're doing well.
I'm sitting still. I would love it if we could be walking around, but but I think there's something about the movement that's really helpful, and the subconscious activity too can be nice.
Subconscious, I am such a believer in including over time learning to trust it. Uh, I,
Mm.
in songwriting, I can without a doubt say that subconscious is huge to me, and I learned that it was. So if I'm working on a song and I'm spending a day or 2 days or 3 days or a week or a month or whatever it's been, I trust the fact that I might go to bed some night, or I might take a walk, or I might do something and it's going to go, bam, there it is.
Mm.
And I'm going to capture that. I'm going to embrace it. I'm not going to question it. I'm going to go, my brain just took all this stuff in one day and went, there you go. I've
Mm.
had that experience way too many times
Mm.
of either waking up or in the middle of the day going, now I'm singing it and going, wait a minute, it wasn't there before. What happened? You
Mm.
know, it sounds supernatural in a way, but subconscious does solve problems big time in songwriting.
I've often thought about songwriting as almost more of like a finding, song finding
Mm.
kind of process, almost like I'm swinging a net around, and
Yeah,
once in a
well,
while you catch it. And
you've heard that theory, I'm sure. There are many songwriting stories, with behind the idea of your antenna is up
Mhm.
all the time. You're literally going.
Mm.
I think that exists, but I also think that's where the craft comes in. Um,
Right.
we all, as songwriters, hope to do this and be receptive and do all the homework involved too. And you look for things. But at the end of the day, when those ideas come through, you have to know what to do with them,
Hmm.
hopefully. You've probably been in this situation too, where I've been in a bar or a plane, someone goes, "Oh, what do you do?" And I've learned not to tell them. But if you say I'm a songwriter, they go, "Oh, I've always had this great idea. It's $1 million idea, and maybe it's a good title or something." But you realize they don't know how to put it together. That's the difference in
Yeah.
the craft. People think, "Oh, this is so easy. You take that idea and make a
Right.
million bucks." But the craft behind the subconscious or the idea or wherever it came from is what literally crafts this idea into something good, hopefully.
Mm. That's
Yeah,
true.
a lot of people have a lot of ideas,
Yeah.
but as a songwriter you want to have some kind of discipline to turn them into something.
Well, I wonder if other professions get that too, like an architect, for instance. I've got
Probably,
a
and
great idea for a building and a house, and
yeah, yeah,
can you make
there are a
that for
lot
me?
of great idea people. They're
Yeah.
not they're not quite as many take it to fruition people, I don't think.
Yes. Yeah, well, a lot of the grunt work is in there, I think.
Yeah.
Um, that's an easy thing to forget. I think that it is hard.
Yeah.
It is challenging. It is um, a lot of trial and error, a lot of failure,
Mm.
uh, difficulties like that. But
And
the
connecting songs too, as you know. I mean, um, for them to connect,
Mhm.
so many things have to happen. Some of them are not related to the song at all.
Mm.
I'll give you an example, like again, something from the book. I feel like a hack author once in a while if I say it's in my book. Okay, I'm not. I'm at least not saying the name of the book, but it is in the book that I had an assignment one day. I was home. I work in London a lot. I wasn't in London. I was home in Franklin, Tennessee. And the people I work with in London had an artist in the studio called Billy Piper, who was like Britney Spears at the time. This is like year 2000, probably. And they said, okay, she's in the studio, which is, songwriter's dream. And they're right there. They said, we're not coming up with a single. We need it. It's the 11th and a half hour of this project. You got anything? And I said, well, again, like songwriters tend to lie. I said, yeah, I think I do. I'll call you back in a little bit. I had nothing. So I'm sitting there sweating, trying everything in the world, trying. And finally, I took a break and I went to the grocery. And something started to go through my brain. And I realized later, now looking back, my subconscious was taking everything I've been trying to do and went. And I walked in the grocery and I was walking down. I still remember the vegetable aisle of, I think, a Kroger in Nashville. And I thought, I've got a melody in my head. What is this thing? And I at that this was before iPhones and everything. So I called my answering machine at home, sang it into the machine, sang it all the way home because I thought I'm going to lose it. I don't even know what it is. Singing it, singing it, singing it, singing. I get home, I get it down in a rough way. I send it to the studio, and they loved it. The artist is there. The whole team in the studio just got on it in London, recorded it, did it. They finished it by the following day. When it was released, it released and went to number one.
Wow.
Now, my point is that's never happened before or since. That
Mhm.
was like so many things have to align, not just with your good idea in the business end of this,
Yes.
but networking, connections, timing, artist. There's so many things that go into like a hit song, aside from a great song, and they're two different things to me. Hopefully, they can become the same one. I hope, but there's an awful lot of subconscious in the writing a great one, coincidence, timing, networking in the hit one.
Hmm.
It's a tough business in that regard.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point because the hit not only requires it to be a pretty decent song, but the timing,
Yeah.
especially, you know.
You've been around songwriters too, and I always hate this when if I coach somebody or talk to somebody and they go, "Well, my songs are as good as everything on the radio. It all sucks. I don't know why I'm
Uh
not
huh.
rich." It's like there's a lot more.
Yeah.
There's a lot of building relationships. There's a lot behind
Hmm.
some of those songs you're hearing.
Right. Right. Yes, that's a whole other side.
Yeah, it's
That
another conversation.
yeah, for
But
real.
it's an important one to again back to coaching writers. I really coach writers to stay away from that bitterness always.
Hmm.
Don't start thinking I'm as good as this. It's not happening, and it's because the whole business sucks. It's all nepotism. It's not. It's the relations you build, the talent you have, timing, and a small amount of luck once in a
Hmm.
while. You know,
Yeah, and that's it's unhealthy, I think, to get into that mindset too. Be-
horrible. It's
because the fact is this is what it is anyway. And your attitude does not affect that one way or the other, and it's only really affecting you and
absolutely agree.
your own
Absolutely.
drive and interest and all that.
Yeah.
Hmm. So it's a lot of staying positive, I think, too, right?
It is, yeah, and
Believing.
that's hard sometimes,
Yeah.
sure. Again, back to the book, I have a chapter in celebrating grieving, which is this. It's
Hmm.
like if you want to do it as a career, you got to learn to celebrate the ups, somehow and grieve the downs within reason.
Mm.
I used to joke about I would grieve for 2 days and be hard to be around if I lost a cut. But after 2 days, I got to be among the living again and keep
Yeah.
going.
Yeah. You let
And
yourself have that a little bit, and then
I
kind
learned
of
to
like
have it.
your 2
You know,
hours.
my family learned to have it with me. Like,
Yeah.
okay, let's leave him alone.
Uh-huh.
He's a grumpy guy for a while because those things, if you're aiming really high like that, it's hard. You don't, and you come close and you don't get it. It's hard. It's like
Yeah.
it's not horseshoes. There's no, you can't come close and get anything. You got to get it.
Yeah.
And occasionally you do, but most of the time you don't. And that can be really hard. And that separates, I think, writers that do it for a career over a long period of time from the ones who maybe had a little bit of luck and then they burn out or fade away or get bitter.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the long game, huh?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it is. It's a career.
Yeah. It's good stuff. I appreciate you sharing that.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.
And a lot of great wisdom there, and I think the stuff you're doing is really cool, really helpful. The blog too has got a lot of great information for people to check out. That's at idocoach.com, and then there's my the blog link right there. I think people can get a lot out of it, and the book is called Song Journey. We'll make sure we get that out. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, so much great information. I really thank you for your time.
My pleasure, Brian. It
It's
was
been nice
fun
to
talking
talk
to you.
to you.
Yeah.
Um,
You're a wise man as well with what you're teaching and your
oh,
attitude.
thank you.
It's
I'm learning. You know that the podcast is getting to talk to people like you is taught me a tremendous amount, and
And I
um,
wish every lyricist would major in English. I do.
eh,
I mean, most, people like Don Henley's and people who are great lyricists, they're always English majors.
oh
You
yeah, I
know,
didn't know that.
so many of
Don
them are
Henley.
English
Hmm.
majors. They're well read. They know how to put words together.
I tell my students that you become a better writer by reading.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
it's definitely hand in hand. But you kind of, I guess it's like it's songwriting too. I mean, you got to listen to music. You got to pay
You do.
attention and analyze songs. And
I don't know if I can get away with this phrase, but I mean, one of the phrases in Nash, you can cut me out at some point. One of the phrases is always, you have to write shit because shit is fertile.
yes,
Write
it
enough of
is
it,
fertile.
something grows.
Yeah.
Same with writing, story. You write a lot of bad ones, and then your command of this gets better, and it all gets better.
I did that actually as one of the first podcasts that I did for this show was write bad music, I think I called it.
Mm.
And the idea behind it was to just don't worry about it. Just write a
Yeah,
bad song. Like
yeah,
don't get so caught up in is this good? Is this, and I think it ties in with what you said about how you guys are in that hotel room and writing for yourself and not worrying about, I mean, you were trying to write good music, but the idea is like, just do it. Just get it out.
I
And
think I think the term, Brian, is always like, "Don't be precious." Talking to
yes,
clients, will say that, "Don't be precious." Listen, there's nothing precious about any of this.
right.
Throw it out. If it becomes a classic hit that we all, love forever, then it's precious, maybe. But the
Yeah.
process is not precious. You just got to throw it out. Hope
I-
it works.
I've found that mentality has helped me so much, especially even like playing music with other people. It's very easy to let your ego get big and
Sure.
I want this is my guitar riff and that needs to be
Yeah.
in there. Like, who cares? It's a guitar riff.
We,
It's
you and I didn't talk about co-writing. That's another whole subject, but especially one I deal with in coaching a bunch because there's an art to that, and it's kind of what you're describing. The bad art, the bad part of it is y'all get in the room going, look at me, listen to me, listen to me.
mhm,
Those co-writes are terrible. It's
yeah,
the co-writes you go in and go, what do you got? Let me throw out something. Let's see where we go together. And there's an art form and an etiquette to that whole deal
mhm,
um, that you only learn by doing it for a long time. I went in the wrong way a million times younger,
sure.
just guns blazing. Whether you hear my idea, you know, help me finish my idea.
Uh-huh.
That's not co-writing.
No, no, and you miss a lot of the good stuff that the other
You
person
surely
has
do.
to
You miss it
offer.
all. Yeah, yeah.
You're so dead set
Yeah.
on that one thing.
I think it's the other key is along with don't be precious is you're a listener. You learn to listen.
Hmm.
Go in and listen first and act later.
I agree. I think that's a nice place to end.
Cool. Well, thank you, Brian.
So, we can send people to idocoach.com. Is
IDoCoach.com. And the book is called Song Journey,
Mhm.
which is it's number one on Amazon right now, which is fun.
Congratulations for that. That's
Thank you.
a great
Hope it,
accomplishment.
hope it keeps a going.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can encourage some people to keep that going today.
Yeah. All right, bud.
Yeah. So thanks very much, everybody, for listening. Thanks to Mark Cawley for being on the show and sharing his wisdom and writing great songs for us all. Um,
Thank you for having me.
and I guess people can reach out to you too if they want to get some coaching as well.
Yes, if they just they can reach me at mark@idocoach.com with questions, or just go onto the site. I think the site is self-explanatory to some degree. You
Yeah.
can look at it, as you said, read the blogs and get a feel for coaching.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, do that if you want, people. As you can tell, you're going to learn something good.
I
So,
hope so.
all right. So, thank you for being on the show. And
Thank you, Brian.
thank you,
Appreciate it.
everyone, for listening. Have a great day.
Take care, bud.